Hello everyone, this is Brock Skaggs, and I'm going to make this video where we're going to model this handle part here. And so what we've got in front of us is a orthographic projection style drawing where we've got the front view here in the lower left, then a top view if you're looking down on the part from above on the top here, and then right here is our right view. I've got an isometric view, so it's going to hopefully look something like this when we're done modeling. And then I also have a detail view, which is this guy right here. And so here we're just zooming in on that keyway. You can see detail view A is right here on the top view, and so we're just blowing that part of the drawing up so we can apply some dimensions to it. Some other things to note about it, we do have a material, plain carbon steel here. Our units are in inches. And we've got some rounds and fillets that are of a radius of 1/10 of an inch. So with that being said, I think we're ready to hop into SolidWorks. And so I will go ahead and start up SolidWorks here. I'm just going to go ahead and create a new part file. I'll just use the template from the tutorial. It's fine. And we'll wait a moment as SolidWorks gets us a nice clean slate to start doing our modeling. Okay, so the part file is opened. The first thing I'm going to do is check the units. And so if you look down here in the lower right, it says custom, and our drawing set inches, so I'm going to change it from custom to the IPS, the inch pound second unit system. So we have that taken care of. The next thing, I'm just going to hold shift as I select those three planes and hit the eyeball to show them. And I just want to get an idea of where we're at. So I can go ahead and put myself in the isometric view here. And so now I'm going to compare with the drawing. And so we want the handle to look something like this when we put in the isometric view, which is in the view I'm sitting right here. And so to do that, we need to think about having our base feature be oriented correctly. So when I look at this part, I see one kind of predominant base feature, and that's this kind of lower part here. I've got a circle here, I've got a circle here. It looks like I've got some lines that are connecting them. They're probably tangent from what I can see. And I need to basically pull that up in this direction here. So it's kind of vertical when I look at the isometric view. So if I think of that as my base feature, my sketch is going to have to be on the top plane, and I'm going to use a boss extrude. I'm going to sketch this kind of outline that you're seeing here on the top plane here, and then I'll use a boss extrude, and we're going to pull that sketch, or that closed contour that we're going to have in that sketch, vertically in the positive y-axis, and that's how we'll start off making our model. So to do that, I need to create a sketch on the top plane. I can always go up here to Sketch tab, Sketch button here, and then I can go ahead and click the top plane is one way to start a sketch. So now I'm actively in a sketch. You can see it'll have sketch 1 and the minus sign there. Also in the bottom right, you'll see editing sketch 1. So next we need to actually start creating some geometry. I can draw a circle here and a circle here, and then I can draw some lines, and I'll trim out the parts of the circle I don't need. Another thing to take an account of here is, where's that origin? That origin's identified right here in the isometric view, and if you look, it's a little hard to see. Maybe I can zoom in. Yes, you can see it right there, right at the center of this circle or this arc is where that origin is going to be. So we want to mimic that in our model as well. So one of the things we talk about in terms of SolidWorks is shape before size kind of idea, and so I'm just going to go ahead and start modeling up my circles. And so I can come right here. I need a center point circle. That's fine. So my first point will be right there. It's a little hard to see, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off my planes. I just held shift to select multiple of them, and then hit the eyeball to toggle off the visibility. And so now when I see this, you can see as I get close, it kind of snaps to the origin. So I'll left click once there, then pull it out and left click here. Oops. Hit F for fit to the screen, and I don't really want to do that. Another way to actually create a circle besides doing this up here is with right mouse gestures. So you'll see me occasionally do this. So if I hold the right mouse down and just move my mouse ever so slightly, you can see this little icon pops up. And you can configure this to have more than 4 different selections, or what the selections are, but I usually keep the defaults. And you can see that if I hold the right mouse down and just flick to the right, I have a center point circle. So it's the exact same thing as if I wanted to come up to the command manager and start this tool. So it's much faster if that's what you're needing to do. So I'm going to hold my mouse right there. You can see the dashed line saying, hey, I'm horizontal with the center of that point, which is what I want. And I'll just draw a smaller circle at this point. So now I've got the two circles in place, which are the arcs here and here. And then next we've got some lines connecting them. And so if we zoom in again on the top view, you can see these lines look like they're going to be tangent here. And there's nothing telling me otherwise. There's no angle dimensions or anything like that. So I'm going to be sure to enforce that tangent relationship inside of this sketch. So first I just want to go ahead and create lines to connect them, and then we'll enforce the tangents later. So just like we went to circle, we can go to line up here. And so I can click line. You can see I'm going to click the two endpoints of the line to define it. So I'm going to click on this circle. And so you can see it actually grabbed it down here. And then I'm going to click on this guy here. And so it looks like I was close enough to tangent that it went ahead and applied these tangent constraints here. That's what you're seeing here. That geometric relation says, hey, make that line tangent to this circle. Make the line tangent to this circle as well, which is exactly what we wanted. If I didn't want that, I could always select this and just hit delete from the keyboard, and that would remove the relationship. So next we're going to do the same thing on the top side, but instead of going up to the command manager, that ribbon at the top, this time I'm going to use right mouse gesture. So I'll hold my right mouse down, I'll kind of move to the left, and you can see I can select that line. And then again, I'm going to click here and here, once on one edge, once on the other edge. You can see it wanted to keep drawing the line there, so I hit escape afterwards to stop the line command. And in this case, this icon here means it's coincident. That means the end point of the line is on top of the circle or touching the circle. I've got a coincident here, but on the left hand side I've got a tangent, but on the right hand side I don't have a tangent, so I need to apply that geometric relation. So if you think of tangent, what I need to describe is I have an arc or a circle here and a line segment. I can say make those two things tangent. You can do this up here with the display and delete relationship and add relationship there, or you can also just hold control down, select the line, select the circle, and then on the left hand side in add relations area you'll get a a menu that's filtered or sensitive to what you have selected. So in this case I've got a line and arc, so it knows that a tangent could be applied, so it's giving me that offering, and that's exactly what I want. So I will go ahead and apply the tangent. And so we're starting to build more and more information into our model before we even add dimensions. Another thing that if I do is I can see I can pull this circle. I'm just holding the left mouse button down and dragging that circle's center, and it's going up and down, but we don't really want it to go up and down. If you look at the drawing here, it looks like it's exactly horizontal with this one. So I can enforce that. Again, it would be a geometric relation, and again the easiest way I find to do it is hold control down, click the center of this circle, the center of this circle. Now notice we don't have tangent anymore because we just have 2 points, so tangent doesn't really mean anything, it doesn't apply, but I do have horizontal, so I can say make those horizontal. And so then it applies this little geometric relation, little green flag, and you can see it's horizontal. And now I can kind of pull this down and say, yeah, that's roughly the direction I want to go. The next thing we can do is start applying some dimensions. So maybe we apply this horizontal dimension here. Looks like from the drawing it's 4.00 inches. So again, I could go up to Smart Dimension and click the center of this circle, the center of this circle, and I can come down here, left click once to place the dimension, and then type 4.00 and modify that to be 4 inches. That's looking good. Maybe now I want to clean out these arcs here, right? Because I don't need this arc, and I want this to be one nice closed contour in the middle. So that's where we can use this Trim Entities tool. And there's multiple ways to trim. As I click it, you can see all these different options. My biggest fan, or the one I'm most comfortable with or the biggest fan of, is this Power Trim. So Power Trim, you just left click, hold the mouse button down, and you can see I'm dragging, and there's a gray line tracing where I went. Basically whatever I cross will then be trimmed up. And so I'll start here in the middle, I'm left mouse dragging, and I can touch that arc and it goes away. I touch this arc and it goes away, and it's trimming it up to where these tangent points are. So it looks like we're in good shape at this point, and notice I just hit escape there on the keyboard in order to close out of the Power Trim. So let's go ahead and apply some dimensions for these radii. So you can see on the left it's a little bigger, it's got a radius of 1. On the right it's a little smaller, radius of 0.5. So I'll go ahead and smart dimension again. Click the left hand side, that applies the radius dimension of 1.00. Or excuse me, applies the radius dimension, we're going to put it as 1.0. And I can do a similar thing on the right hand side to apply that radius of 0.5. And so hopefully you're getting the kind of the rhythm here as far as you click different entities, then you set the location of where you want that dimension to be, which you can move it around, so it doesn't really matter too much most of the time. And then you apply the actual dimension. And so we could go a little bit farther, but let's stop here and just consider this the base feature. And one thing to note is it's all black. Everything's black here, and it says fully defined at the bottom. That's the way you want to leave your sketches. You want them to be fully defined. That basically says that I, as the designer, have told SolidWorks all the information it needs to uniquely, we'll say, identify and describe all the different entities on the screen. We haven't left anything hanging or open to interpretation, so to speak. And so with all this in place, we're ready to create that first boss extrude. So we'll create the boss extrude, and if you look at our handle, we've got kind of two different levels. You can see that from the front view here. We've got a level of our default datum, or like the table, if you will, is down here at the bottom. There's a level that's 0.75, and then there's a level that's a ½ inch higher than that, a whole, 1.25 inches, the overall height. So we're just going to make this 0.75 height now. So we're still in the sketch, so we can exit the sketch. Notice it's still selected. I can come here and give myself an isometric view. And then as it's still selected, notice it's selected here, I'm going to go to the extrude boss and base. And we create this boss extrude feature. It's blind, that's fine. We're going to go from the sketch plane, that is also fine. And we wanted to go 0.75 inches up. There we have it, 0.75 inches. And so next we can, let's go ahead and create this additional arc here, this little boss that sits on top of this first feature. And so it is 0.5 inches above here, and we're going to share some geometry. So we need to create another sketch. This time, instead of going from one of the original datum planes that SolidWorks gives us, I want to create a sketch on this planar surface here. And so I can click that planar surface. I could come up here and click sketch, that would work. But also, I like to show these quick access items here. I can click the planar surface. I've got this little box that pops up, and I can click sketch from right here. So I'll just left click and select sketch. Now I'll click up here, the view orientation, go normal 2 to kind of rotate the view. And then I've got this plane here that I can now sketch on. So if we're going to create this top boss, if you will, all I really need is a circle. We'll go back through and put the holes and the keyways in afterwards. And so to create this circle, I need to know the center point and the radius. Well, the center point appears to be at the same point as our first circle, right? It's right on the origin. And the radius is going to be the same as the other radius, R1. To do that, we'll go onto the command manager. We can click the center point circle. First point that I click is the center of the circle, and then I'll drag out here and define the radius. And so I'll just click right here. Now we could apply that dimension again and actually describe it with a dimension and say, hey, that's going to have a radius of 1. But I like to tie this in together with the first feature. Here, this is part of what we call capturing the design intent, and we want this upper boss to always have the same radius as the arc right here. And so we can apply a geometric relation to achieve that. If I hold Control and I left click the arc, and then holding Control, left clicking the edge, you can see I've got selected entities of the arc and the edge. And what do we want? We want these to be, in this case, co-radial. And so that's going to lock it in place and make sure that those arcs always are right on top of each other and it's nice and smooth connection. And so this is a very simple sketch after we do that, right? We don't even have any dimensions here, yet we've fully defined the sketch. Everything's black, it's just fully defined here. And we're ready to move on. So this time, instead of actually exiting sketch, one thing you can do is at the sketch level, you can go straight into a boss extrude as well. So I'll illustrate that. So I'm inside the sketch is still active, and I can go straight into features, and I can go to extrude boss and base, and it'll know that I'm wanting to take that sketch and pull it into this boss extrude feature. So here I have it at this point. I'm wanting to extrude from the sketch plane. I want it to be blind. Now we're sitting right on this plane here, so I want to only go up 0.5, so I'll make that change here. You can see the preview updating as well. And also just get in the habit of making sure that this merge results is also checked when you're creating these types of parts. Here the idea is to create one body at the end of the part. We don't want to have multiple separate bodies, but it's all going to be one thing, if you will. And so that merge result should be checked. Most of the time it will be checked. It is by default, but sometimes you can accidentally uncheck it. And there are actual cases where you'll want a multi-body part file, but that's a little bit more of an advanced topic. So when we're happy, we'll just hit the green check mark and accept. So I'm going to hit Control 7 and check the isometric view. That's one thing you'll notice as I create a feature. I'll usually go to Control 7, hit the isometric view real quick, and just see, am I heading in the right direction? Does this look like it's going to end up looking like this? Usually you want to catch those things, catch those potential mistakes earlier on, so that way you don't have to backtrack quite as much. It would be very bad to get to the very end and say, oh no, this whole thing needs to be rotated by a certain degree value. I believe that is possible, but it's not really good practice at the end. So we've created most of the material now. Now let's start putting some holes in this. And so let's work on this little one first. You can see it's 0.38 here. I'll just keep it that. It's probably actually 0.375, but it's just being rounded to 0.38. 0.375 is 3/8 of an inch. And so we know the diameter, we know the center point. I say we know the center point because it appears that the center point of this circle is the same as the center point of this circular arc that we've already used. So this will be very similar to the last sketch where it'll be very simple and only have the circle, and we'll create the circle and then we'll cut extrude it through this thickness in order to create that hole. So first, what is the sketch plane? I'm going to again use this planar face right here, and so I'll select it, and then again I'll hit sketch from the quick access item. Then I also like to make sure that I go normal too. Let's go ahead and use that quick access, or excuse me, the right mouse gesture. So I'll come here, there's the right mouse gesture into the circle. Again, just holding the right mouse and flicking to the right. Notice here that I'm just hovering over that arc and I can expose the center point of the arc. So then I can click that center point, and then the second click defines a temporary radius. And there, I'll use the right mouse gesture again to get that smart dimension up and going. Click the edge of the circle. We want a diameter here, and I'll go ahead and put in 0.38, so that's strictly what's on the drawing. And now we have it again, right? Very quickly, we are at a fully defined sketch here. I've defined the center of this circle because I know it's at the same center point as this arc. And then I described the diameter of the circle explicitly with a dimension. So this is looking good. Now I'm going to keep this sketch active, and then I will just go straight into not boss extrude here, right? We're wanting to remove material, not add material, so we'll use the cut extrude here. Very similar behavior, except for now it's subtractive, right, instead of additive. And so in this case, I'll go from the sketch plane, that's fine. We could do a blind, and we could actually enter a explicit value in here. I believe it's 0.75. But again, going back to kind of the idea of capturing the design intent, my real intent here is that's to go always through the thickness of this part in this direction. So it would be better in this case to say not blind, but through all. That way, if this height here changes, I won't have to go back and update this hole as well. It'll automatically extend the hole's height, if you will, or the depth of the hole, until it reaches the bottom of the part. So this is looking good. So I'll hit a green check mark and hit OK. And now you can see we've created that hole feature going all the way through the part there. Like always, Control 7, just get a quick isometric. Again, we're looking like we're heading in the right direction. Next, let's go ahead and create this circle up here, this hole. It's got a keyway in it, so it'll be a little more complex, and then we'll finish it off with the rounds and fillets. So again, what is our sketch plane? Well, I can use this top face up here. It's a nice planar face we can sketch on. So I'll left click on it. There's the quick access box that pops up, and I can click sketch. So I'm creating a new sketch on that plane. I always like to go normal 2 for the most part, so I'll go normal 2. And then what do we have here? We've got a diameter 1 hole, and then we've got a little keyway action on top. So I'm going to go ahead and first get the circle going. So I could have went up there to center point circle, or I just use the right mouse gesture to activate the circle. The hole is centered right on the origin, and then it's going to have a radius roughly of 0.5 or diameter of 1. So in this case, I haven't explicitly defined the diameter or radius yet. And I'm going to go ahead and actually start drawing in that keyway geometry. So if I go to the line tool, I can start to draw this in. I'll just come over here. And here you notice it just kind of continually draws the next line for me. And so in 1, 2, 3, 4 clicks, I've got the keyway geometry. It's a little big, it's a little overly exaggerated, but that's fine. I want to trim out this section of the arc. So again, I can use power trim to do that. So I go to the trim entities, it's on power trim, I left click and hold, so I start dragging, and then I am able to trim off this section of the arc. And now at this point, everything's very fluid, right? It's very easy to change. Now we need to start applying some more relations and some more dimensions to firm this up. So let's try to apply the dimension for the diameter or the radius of this circular arc at this point. So if I click on it now, it's wanting me to give a radius dimension, and I suppose that's fine, and we can do that. Radius would be 0.5, would be associated with a diameter of 1, so at one point we could just do that and move on for now. And then I've got this right here. I've got horizontal and vertical there, that's fine, so let's go to the drawing. This is where we'd have to consult detail A to see some of this. As you can see, it's 0.25 inches wide, and it looks like it's centered here on the origin. That's what that 0.125 is here. So let's go ahead and apply that. So again, smart dimension. At this point, I can just click on this line and get the length of the line described as 0.25. And then at this point, I can do it a few different ways, but I guess just to do it explicit like the drawing, I could come to smart dimension. Let's click this line, click that point, and then drag up here. You can see I'll just place it right here. And I want it to be 0.125, so if I want that, I could actually explicitly enter 0.125. You can see it's rounding to 2 decimal places just because of the settings on the sketch. But that should be centered, and then we've got this bit here. It looks like that's supposed to be another 1/8 of an inch. So I'll come to the smart dimension, 0.125 there. Okay, so at this point we've used all of the information from the drawing, and we've arrived at another fully defined sketch. It's fully defined here, everything's black, so we're looking pretty good. So just like last time, the sketch is still active, so I can use that, and I can go straight into a cut extrude. And just like last time, if you look at the drawing, it's all the way through again, so at this point I'm going to go again to through all to pass that all the way through the part. The green check mark to accept. I look at our isometric view. Yes, we're looking pretty good there as well. So we are, I believe, one feature away at this point, and that's all these rounds and fillets. Usually you want to keep those type of things toward the end of your modeling process, the rounds, the fillets, the chamfers, these kind of dress-up features, if you will. And so what I can do, since they're all the same radius of 0.1 or 1/10 of an inch, I can apply these all at the same time. SolidWorks makes this fairly easy. I can just come up here to the fillet tool. And there are different ways to describe a fillet. Here's kind of the vanilla fillet, the constant size fillet. The radius is already populating to 0.1, which is what I want, and I can accept the other default values. And so at this point I've got full preview shown, so I can actually start clicking the edges, and it'll actually start giving me previews of what this is going to look like, which is very nice. I'm a big fan of that feature of SolidWorks. Just the idea of, hey, I'm going to preview what this tool is going to do before I actually commit it to the model. And so I can kind of rotate it around. That looks like what it is in the drawing. And I'll accept it. And so now when I look at the drawing, so isometric view, and I compare it to my model, they're looking very, very close. Actually, I don't see any differences. I don't think we've missed anything at this point. Geometrically, we'll say. We do have one other note that I'd like you to get in the habit of doing is when you see a drawing like this, if you see material, such as plain carbon steel, we want to also tell that to the model itself here. And so you do that right up here. I've got a material, it's not specified. I've got this quick access here where I can specify plain carbon steel. That would work for now. Or if you don't see it in that little list, you can go to the edit materials, and SolidWorks has a nice library of materials here. So if I collapse it up here, it's got the SolidWorks materials. You can see they're grouped into different categories: steel, iron, aluminum, and so forth. Here we just, under the steel, we want the plain carbon steel. And so here you get things like mechanical properties, elastic modulus, Poisson's ratio. Well, there should be a density in here. Yes, there's the density itself there. So I'll apply it. I'll close. See, it had a little bit of appearances that were baked into it, so that's why the appearance of the model changed, and we have plain carbon steel. Another nice thing about this is when you go to the Evaluate tab and Mass Properties, now I can see a mass there, 1.81 pounds, which our drawing says yes, the weight is 1.81, so that's another way we can check. And so unless you have the correct material, obviously the mass will not be correct there. Volume may be, but not the actual mass, because obviously that depends on the density of the material. So anyhow, I think we have successfully managed to model this handle part. We've explored a few different concepts in SolidWorks as far as what happens to the sketch, different boss extrude, cut extrude features. Notice those always have a sketch, and then we're using a boss extrude, or a sketch and then a cut extrude. And then we also got into the fillet tool. Notice there's no sketch in the fillet tool, but we can just click the individual edges of the model and apply that fillet, or kind of rounding the edges process there. So with that being said, thank you for watching the video, and hopefully this helps you construct your SolidWorks models.